may break at various points, but we shall find out.
We'll see.
Right, let's go with this.
Okay, you're in refuel.
It's way better than pressing.
2, 8, 1, 9. Okay, cool. Everyone, please give a big round of applause to Mike.
Yeah, I remember once I was at a school award ceremony and something like this happened, and my dad goes, "It's always him," right from the back of the audience. It was very strange. Apologies for the strange, crazy lines. I didn't export my slides when I must have been logged in, so it's giving me this sort of nice logged out view that means that basically I've used premium images inside Canva. So I do apologize in advance. Right, let's see if this works. Nope. We can go that way. No. Oh, there we go. Right. Cool. Morning. My slides are fatally ugly. Part of the reason I joined Canva is so I can learn to design. I am as bad at designing sort of slides as I am at getting my hair cut, I think, in many ways. Right, okay, this is about me, my horrendous ego slide. That was my Twitter picture for probably about 6 years. In terms of that, I made my first web page in about 1994 when you copied HTML code out the back of a magazine, which my father had bought, and made my first web page then. I accidentally went to university 3 times. It would have been 1, but I couldn't get a job the second time, and I couldn't get a job after that, and I wasn't really very good at much stuff. I kind of messed about in the web, probably because there wasn't really much call for listening and playing in punk bands in small town Scotland in the early to mid 90s. And that was kind of what I wanted to do until I got really, really deaf. And then I decided that being a sound engineer was not going to be my career of choice because I couldn't hear jack shit anymore. In that relation to that, I got into web marketing by mistake because I asked a really stupid question, which was, why does that thing rank in web crawler, which is like way, way back, and then I did it in Alta Vista and various things. My mother says I got my first real job 5 years ago. I got a job at Skyscanner, and I headed up their SEO team and went on to become a director in the growth function there. It was the first time she could tell somebody where I worked and what I actually did for a living. After about 25 years of messing about on the internet, it was quite fun. And as you can hear, I'm Scottish. And I'm very proud of being Scottish because we invented the search engine, just so you're aware. The first ever web crawler using links was invented in Stirling University. So yes, we invented the search engine. We make no money from it. We're just very good like that to the rest of the world. SEO is reasonably simple. Okay, basically we have a problem like in this picture here. If you haven't seen Mallrats, this will make no sense whatsoever, but bear with me. It's a phenomenal movie. You should probably watch it on Netflix. Jay and Silent Bob want to destroy the slide. That is Jay and Silent Bob down here. To destroy this sort of stage show that they're actually doing, they have to fly over LaForge's head because he's dumb as shit and knock this crossbeam out, okay? This is basically like every SEO plan I've ever seen in my life. It's a bit madcap, it's a bit crazy, but you know what? If you actually manage to pull it off, it'll be pretty cool at the end of it. The problem that we have is we see all these bullshit graphs. This is what a successful search strategy looks like. Your boss or your colleagues believe this is actually possible. And magically, if you sit for 6 to 9 months and just do the right stuff, you will get a nice growth curve like that. I'm sorry, that is bullshit. That is not how the internet works. It is not a simple, easy game of sitting, planning out, in 12 months, we will magically be here because we've done all the right things. The internet will have changed inside that 9 months and you'll be as screwed as when you started. Basically, the internet looks a bit like this if you're lucky. But very often for most businesses, it doesn't even go this well. The highs and lows are not as good as that graph makes out. Generally, what actually happens is we hit these things called inflection points, and our business has to struggle to get through to the next level. And in SEO, it is no different. It's about understanding what your inflections look like and how the hell to get out of them before you crash and burn, because you do not want to be in that situation where you are scrambling for traffic when you're in trouble. So I'm going to talk you through some scenarios because every SEO wakes up someday and goes, what the hell has happened here? I love the fact that that hasn't got the Canva bit over the top of it, and everything else has. You can tell the ones that I then stole from the internet when I couldn't find something in Canva that I liked. And the basic rule of SEO is what worked yesterday doesn't always work today. I spent the formative years of my career being an industrial scale link spammer. I basically automated programs and did lots of things that someone told me the other day might actually be illegal today when building links across the world. But these things don't last, and we have to start doing the right things. I am now a reformed spammer, I think is probably the best way of putting it in reality. Okay, let's talk about keywords and stuff, because everyone's chasing keywords. Everyone wants to be in this blue bit, the top 100 keywords with lots and lots of sort of search volume. And then what ends up happening is we go down the actual curve. If I don't fall over and break my hip in the process, because I am getting that old. These keywords are where we start our keyword research, and everyone goes, hey, which keyword should I write content for? So where we start off is that you sit around, you're at a table, and you're a bunch of SEOs, and you go, we need a good content, so let's hire a copywriter. And this is where many businesses start their SEO. And what ends up actually happening is we hire someone who's actually doing some work, which is, let's look at more keywords, let's write stuff about keywords, let's upload the stuff that we wrote about keywords based upon the research, and then, hey, look at this publishing that we're actually doing. We try and pretend that we're adding something meaningful to the internet. Instead, all we're doing is actually chasing traffic. It's quite sad and it's quite disappointing, but it actually works, right? And these people are really good. They actually generally create better content than I can, because I still spam probably in my sleep, but they actually do these things. And we find that the more content we publish, the more traffic we get, and the more traffic we get, the more sales we make, so we publish more. And we sort of keep going through this. And we end up with these nice little graphs that go, hey, by the way, this term had this many searches, and they got this click through, and they got this many sessions and converted, and all the rest of it. And at the end, we say, hey, we made this much revenue from this piece of content. And hey, that's only 1 month. Over 12 months, that's even better. It only cost us about $50 to actually make. Hey, we're making lots of money. But if we come back to this graph, that is where you start getting hooked on what these things actually mean, because you hit your first big growth curve. And what actually happens is you're actually just entering your first inflection point. You just don't know it yet. Because everyone's about to sit down at the table and say, we actually just need more content. If our copywriter can only do N articles inside a month, let's get more copywriters and we'll build more content, because then if we get more content, we get more traffic. And the unfortunate thing is you now end up with a team that looks something like this, where you have somebody in purple. They don't have to wear purple. That was just my color of choice. Who's actually now your editor, is now drawing out this sort of editorial team, is now generating content at scale. And they're still doing the researching, writing, uploading, publishing, but somebody now has to manage the workflow. Our overheads are going up, so we hire a new editor. They've got numerous writers, and we keep scaling this out and out. And it's quite a sad position, because we then start deciding we're going to make more and different content. We're going to make just the landing pages we have, but we're going to make stuff for micro moments, so we can cover off these how-to questions and start getting structured data and all the rest of these things to get position 0, which Google will then steal your answers from and then put in a voice search, and you'll get no credit. Watch out for that. You'll then start writing blog posts that are actually really interesting for people to read, but you will make no sales from. You'll write how-to guides, which actually drive some sort of level of engagement. You'll write marketing pages for things that people do not care about. You'll make onboarding content that nobody will ever see, and you will do content marketing, which will be very expensive unless you get some good people to do it for you. And for some reason, your original SEO is now a content specialist and is now a manager of hundreds of people and is no longer doing SEO, right? That is basically where I see about 80% of SEOs getting stuck inside in-house roles. And the economics of content production is now that we're actually crashing in value. We're now burning money to actually generate the traffic, to make that graph go up, so that we can tell people we're doing a good job. But we actually don't want to admit that we're actually a little bit lost. And the problem is, we're moving further and further down this search demand curve. We already rank here. We've already got this stuff. Where do we actually go next? And we're now automating by human beings, which is really quite difficult to do, and it's very expensive inside an SEO context. So we're now stuck in a new inflection point, which we now have to get out of, because we're now spending a lot of money. There's now people's jobs on the line because of the way we've behaved in the past, and we need to be better than that in the future. So what we actually do is we now enter the content arms race, okay? We're going to have bigger, better, stronger, faster, shinier content than anybody else has ever seen. I love this graph. It appears in Google Images if you search for a concept known as content collapse, right? Which is the area of shock where the internet is now, where there is now uneconomical to produce more content, because content production keeps increasing, but we can only consume so many pieces of content per day, okay? There's only so many pieces that we're actually interested in. That interest per human being and that need per human being has not changed. All that has changed is the internet is now awash with crap, unfortunately. And I have not been a good human being in terms of that in some of the past things I've done. So now what we start trying to do is we start trying to extend our keyword research. We now find it's not economical to write the stuff here because we can't afford to write it, okay? And we can't even find the keywords because they don't appear in your keyword research because there is no commercial intent, and Google will not tell you what these keywords are because there is no ad they can sell you against it. And when there is no ad they can sell you against it, it's not in their interest to tell you that people are actually interested in this stuff. Which is a damn shame. So we've gone through this sort of process of going from individual scale, how much content can one person create, to network scale. If I have teams of people, how do I manage that and make it? We hit upon this massive idea of we're going to move to internet scale, okay? Your SEO team is now going to have engineers, and they're going to automate the living daylights out of this entire process for you. Because SEO plus engineering equals success, and it must be true because it's a Venn diagram. Okay. Problem is, SEOs and engineers do not get on very well together. This is probably one of the stages that when I've been sort of working with startups, is probably one of the funniest things I ever see, is SEOs saying developers will not listen to me. They will not do what I ask them to do, as if it's the developer's fault that they have not understood what you actually asked them to do, or you treated them like they were an idiot in their specialism. SEOs need to be very much better round about this and understand what engineers actually need to get the work done on your behalf, okay? They're your superheroes. These are the guys that are going to dig you out of your inflection point. And engineers, you need to sort of like sit down and put your ego to one side and listen a little bit. There may be somebody who might know something about something that you did not study at university, and it will not get you promoted today. We're now in this realm of asking these questions around about why, how, and what, which are now basically SEO plus product plus engineering. You've now turned your SEO into a product owner. By mistake, and you hit a new inflection point as you do this because your SEO does not have the skills to be a product owner, because nobody has taught your SEO team how the heck to communicate with stakeholders and say what's actually going on, because they're interested in the latest three-letter acronym that Google's been talking about on the internet. They have no idea on what workflow management and what a backlog looks like and what the difference between a sprint or a Kanban system is, or how many units of work their team can actually get through in a dev cycle, and then how that actually provides value to users and stakeholders. And SEOs are really bad at saying no. It's probably the biggest bit. And now we're at the stage where we've got SEOs who are leading teams of engineers, content writers, they're running the product space, they're running engineers, and we've just thrown them into a really scary mess because we're trying to scale the business, because we need the SEOs to work with and lead the engineers to do everything properly. And funnily enough, at this point, you've also just made them a manager as well, right? So you have an SEO who doesn't know how to be human in terms of speaking to other human beings. You're now asking them to manage human beings and be responsible for their careers. We can't speak to engineers who's now managing a process they do not understand, and all they want to do is go back to building links, which is basically where I was for a reasonably long period. And it ends up looking like this, where it's a permanent state of war, because nothing actually gets done. Despite having the appropriate resourcing and having all the best people to actually solve your problems, your team isn't actually set up for success. And as a result of that, your SEO goes off with stress. I have done that. I am not afraid to say that I have been in this horrific situation whereby it's like, nothing's working. I can't work out why it's not working. I will tell you why it's not working, because I was a bit shit at my job. And that's because I was stretched too thin, okay? The point is that as SEOs, we take on more and more, and we find ourselves in really ambiguous and difficult circumstances. As we progress through all the different points of scaling from a team of one person to teams of hundreds of people, we have bigger responsibilities, and we hit these inflection points on a regular basis. I find these questions really helpful now when I'm working with teams. They're now like the top questions that I ask every single person when I start working in an organization, to try and understand what's going on. Would you say you actually are sufficiently skilled and competent at doing your job? It's amazing when you ask people how many people don't actually understand what their job is, because nobody ever said. They've been in an organization 6-8 years, especially inside SEO, and they're like, I don't know. I just go where somebody tells me to go and the problem's to fix, right? We haven't set these people up for success. Clear to me what I own and what I'm responsible for. They have no idea, very often. Inside big companies, as we go forward, it becomes really hard to say we don't understand. It's like, I don't know the question you want me to answer, the problem that I'm having to solve, so I need to maybe get an agency to support me in this. We have to do better at these pieces. They feel they're well aligned and understand the wider goals of the business. They're actually able to make decisions. Increasingly, that decision sort of like piece is where I find SEOs getting more and more actual strength from their actual work and getting energy back from the work they're doing, rather than the work taking energy from them. And where appropriate, approvals are required, decision latency is very short. That is my personal feeling. I probably slow down my teams too much by not giving them that actual level. And I have the necessary resources and tools to carry out my responsibilities. I think that question probably needs rephrased, because every person I ever speak to tells me they've never got the resources they require or the tools that they need to actually do the job. But basically these 7 questions are then the point when you're building teams that you can start understanding, are we actually setting people up for success so they can move forward? And this is a point where you start leveling up. Scott Pilgrim versus the World, great comic book. If you haven't read it, I would advise you do so. It tells you a lot about the world, and it also tells you that bread makes you fat. It is not my excuse, but apparently so. One of my learning lessons for today. When we reach this sort of stage and we're leveling up, we then end up with all this, I'm going to call this growth marketing bullshit, which is basically that we should buy a copy of the Wayne Startup and we should build, measure, and learn. You should totally build, measure, and learn, but not because Eric Ries tells you so. Because basically, measurement is really tough, and it's not as simple as a lot of these books sort of lay out. It actually makes a lot of SEOs cry, and this is the point where we reach our new inflection point, which is, hey, I now know how to do my job, and I'm now sufficiently set up to do it. I just can't measure anything, and I don't know what the right things to measure actually are anymore. And basically this is because your data catches fire. All the things that you actually need to scale at a business, which is now doing tens of millions of MAUs per month, just no longer scale. Your Google Analytics integration is crap, and you have no idea why. You just know that the numbers make no sense whatsoever anymore, and you can't understand it. And you end up with this sort of data cloud, which is now, hey, I'm going to port in all my really cool tools that I'm now paying subscription fees for that are now costing me somewhere in the region of potentially $20,000 a month or $250,000 a year, right? And you're pushing them in and you can't access the data because the data pipeline's on fire. And you spend half your life just fighting through this measurement sort of debacle. And then one day, guess what gets you out of the shit? An engineer. Probably that engineer that you fought with about 6 months ago when you were trying to work out how do I manage a team has now dug you out of the hole that you need. You need to get engineers on side because they solve these problems on your behalf. At which point we hit a new inflection point inside most SEO businesses that I see, which is, in this case, I've got a blank slide, so I have no idea what the heck was actually inside of there. So we're going to move swiftly ahead and pretend that didn't happen. Basically, at this point, the inflection is that we have so much data that we don't know what to do with it. Okay? You've got so many different data points, some of which don't make any sense, and some of which are counterintuitive, and some are telling you to go left, and some are telling you to go right. And magically, you get a data scientist. And you get a data scientist who goes, hey, I know what to do with 10 trillion rows of data. Hey, I will throw them into this equation or into this algorithm, and magically something will come out at the end that you won't understand, but it will tell you whether to go left and right. They're like even better than engineers, by the way. If you can find those people and they can put up with the shit that you talk as an SEO, you'll be doing really, really well inside of there. And this causes a lot of problems because a lot of the data we now start getting back is probabilistic and not deterministic. What do I mean by that? Deterministic is when I get a really exact answer, okay? What is the content I require to rank for keyword X, okay? Well, I require keyword inside title. I require keyword inside this page. I need to understand my synonyms and all the rest of it, and I jam some links in, and I can make one page rank. You're now dealing with amounts of pages which are in the millions or the hundreds of thousands at a time. You're now dealing in probabilities. You're now sort of playing a game of, hey, if 80% of these pages go up and 10% go down and 10 don't move, do you know what? That's actually a really good result, but not 100% of them. And I probably might not understand exactly what happened inside this context. And as you move forward, everything becomes really uncertain because all the stuff that you learned through your SEO career until this point doesn't actually work. All those rules that we've learned through all the different optimizations that we're doing by hand in those very early stages don't seem to work at this scale, and they don't seem to have the same impact that we expect anymore. And as we go through it, everything becomes inconsistent, and all we have is our data to guide us, because all the things that you read inside a whiteboard Friday on a Friday afternoon that everybody puts into practice on a Monday morning, everybody else is doing that. You should try and find an opposite direction to go in, because if everybody else is chasing that way, your opportunity space is now in a different direction. And alongside that, everything's invisible. You will never see all these pages that you own because your website is now 10 million pages wide. You will see 4 pages. You will see the ones with big traffic that your analytics says are big and important, and you'll go and check them and you go, yeah, that kind of makes sense. The rest of them you might never ever view, and you might never have a view on, so everything becomes invisible. And this is where we have an existential crisis, which is, where am I going, what am I doing, and what is the meaning of life, because nothing makes sense at this stage anymore as an SEO. because all we have is numerical data, and all we have is a set of hypotheses and a set of thoughts to guide us in our plans going forward, until you realize that there are experimentation frameworks which make you believe that you actually understand what's going on. And there's an R library by Google, if you're interested, that'll do all this stuff for you. Just throw some data sets, get a data scientist or an engineer, they'll dig you out the shit on that one. As well. And your SEO is now a product owner, engineering manager, line manager, everything else on the internet, and a data scientist, right? I don't know why, but as an SEO, we seem to be responsible for everything which is on the internet, especially everything which Google does. We are meant to be on top of all this stuff. And the SEO role is no longer just to drive that traffic and all the rest of it. But at this point, we're asking SEOs to be something so much bigger. And everything on the internet basically means you get to use lots of big words, which SEOs really seem to like. I found this in my career as an SEO.